All right, all right. And so here we are going live, live, live. Sometimes with technology, I tell you, I don't know what be going on with technology sometimes. But what I will say is that we just go along with it, right? That is what we do. We just go along with it. Yes, 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 yes. Um, and so, mm, what I want to talk about is transitions. When it comes to transition, and again, it can be transition really with anything, because I always say this first. Sometimes depends on the transition can impact what comes up. But for the most part, the path that you take or the dynamics and the patterns are very similar. Yeah, what you're dealing with is different, but the thing is that what changes that you're going through, who are you becoming, what you're leaving behind, that process is really the same, which is one of the reasons um, that I had created Empower Your Evolution. Pretty much, I am doing a webinar series where I'm really just talking, I'm not just talking about it, but I'm really honing on in it because as entrepreneurs, as leaders, as executives, as business owners, you don't want even your calling, your passion, your movement, your ministry, your mission to overpower you. And life doesn't just stop lifing because of the fact that we have a business, or because we have a business, it doesn't mean that life is not gonna life. We've all experienced, one thing after another. And one thing that I have found is that, and again, even for me, even by me being a therapist, even for me being an advocate, and I've always, practiced certain things, but I've even had my start, stop moments. And then there are still things that I need to get better at. But what I have seen at its core is that a lot of times we're not nurturing ourselves, nurturing our nervous system, reconditioning our nervous system. What that means is from any wounds that we have, any trauma that we have, any baggage that we may have, to recondition of how you're responding, and then to train your nervous system to be and respond in a different way so that you can really have an impact in the world, and so that those doubts or those self-esteem or those things that make you start and stop, um, whatever you may be doing out of fear, so that you can stop doing that. Because the more that you nurture yourself, especially actively, intentionally through a transition, and I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's just going to make your life so much easier. I'm not saying that, but it will help you get through it. It allows you to see things you might have didn't see, hear things that you might not have heard. And so in saying all of that, trying to figure out what this, again, I don't know what's going on with my technology. But before I move on, let me do this. Let me make sure that I'm introducing myself. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Sharon D. Brown, and I'm the founder of Self-Care You Academy. And generally, with Self-Care You Academy, I empower executives and entrepreneurs to supercharge your self-care. I cannot say this enough. I'm going to keep saying this until I'm just going to say this until, but to supercharge your self-care so that you can sustain your sanity and thrive under pressure. And even though we don't like to think about our calling, our passion as a pressure, but our nervous system does, our body does, even sometimes our mind, even if consciously you don't think of it that way. And that's one thing I've had to learn. Even though I may not see something as such, but it doesn't mean that your body can read it as certain different. Your body can read it as something completely different. So this is why it is so important, y'all. It is so important for you to take care of yourself. And so, in saying that, when it comes to you in transitioning, one way to look at it, it is an opportunity for you to empower your evolution. And as being entrepreneurs, this is what we're always doing. It's not just about being good at your craft, but it's about you being, because sometimes that can get left behind, y'all. It really can. It can be left behind of you being. But one thing that I want to say is that if you are in a season of transition, and especially if the transition is very hard, something you're not expecting, especially when it comes to relationships, whether it's a breakup, a separation, or a divorce, you are not broken. Whatever it is that you may be going through, you are not broken. You are evolving. You are becoming a better person, a better being. But the whole purpose of all of this is so that we can be a better version of ourselves. To me, that's basically what self-care is. Is we're using tools, we're using tools and rituals and practices so that you can be the best version of yourself. So again, you're not broken, you're evolving. And so when it comes to empower your evolution, this is primarily for female entrepreneurs, for women who are 40 years and older, who are entrepreneurs, leaders, and business owners, and you're navigating life or business, or you just want personal growth like me, because I'm all about personal growth. I love being in the room for personal growth. And right now, and I want to make sure y'all understand this, with personal growth, it doesn't always mean a yoga retreat or even a mindset retreat per se. I really feel like everything is a mindset. But it doesn't always mean that, like in the wellness. It can mean even on the business side, because like for me, personal growth is more so on the business side of personal growth, because it has been so new. There's so many different avenues and so many dynamics to learn. And so again, for each person, your personal growth is for you, is whatever area that you want to expand in. And also, this is for, you're successful, but you're like, I just don't feel aligned. I'm just unbalanced. I'm just uncertain. I just don't know, And so this is for you. Just continue to listen, and you're just ready to move forward with clarity and with support, because of the fact that when we're in transition, sometimes you can really be stuck. And if you're stuck, you're not moving, you're on the sideline, and you're not really doing what you're set here to do, and that is to have an impact. And so one thing I do want to say, let me pause for a moment. One thing that I do want to say when it comes to transitions is that transitions don't just change what you do. Transitions can change who you are. Oh, believe me. In the process, it doesn't feel good, but believe me, it'll get good it's much better when you're on the other side, okay? It is much better when you're on the other side. And so, in saying that, transition can change how you feel about yourself, how you feel about other people, how you feel about the world. Transition can change how you think, the thoughts that come to your mind, but it may even change your belief about things, and it can even change how you're showing up, because sometimes some transitions can really have you down in the barrel. It can really have you in a dark place, and so you show up different because there's that low self-esteem. Imposter syndrome can come in, that low self-confidence of just how you view yourself, and it can diminish of you being authentic. And so those are some things when it comes to transitions, I want to say, we don't always talk about. Now, most of us, if I'm put it like this, if you hadn't gone through a transition, you're probably blind because at certain points in everyone's life, you're going to go through some transitions. Okay, you really are. And so some common transitions that most of us know is breakup, separations, divorce. Even when it comes to a new job, that's a form of transition, even a promotion. I can remember there was a time in which I had transitioned into being a supervisor, and that was a big transition, I tell you. Then when it comes to, different stages of entrepreneurship, that is another way that we transition, just to different phases of it. And then when there are different business challenges, and this one is a big one. And I'm going to talk more about identity shift. I see why people are talking about it. It's like I'm aware of it, but when you really sit with that identity shift, that is a big transition, especially for those of us who are entrepreneurs. And then you have, for those of you who are parents, different phases of parenthood, being a caregiver, family responsibility, even in moving into a new home or you're relocating. Even though those things can be excited, but even good transitions can disrupt you. They really can. I can remember when I was engaged and got a new job and was moving to a new city. And one thing that I can say, I kind of felt like I was just running on a treadmill or something. And in looking back, and I've said this before, in looking back, what I should have done, and again, it's our way of thinking. It's like, oh, this is such a wonderful opportunity. I'm going from working 5 days a week to working 3 days. I don't need to ask for any time off. No, especially with that type of move. Most definitely take time off. Definitely plan it. And even though it was a planned move, but I just say I did not incorporate that. So in saying that, even though that was something exciting, and transitions are there for you, but growth can still dysregulate you, unbalance your nervous system, and just disrupt your confidence, especially your habits, y'all. Ooh, especially your habits, and along with your nervous system. Now, we as women, one of the things that we do is that when we're in transition, when things, for the most part, need to be done, what do we do? Let me hear you. What do we do? What do we do? I want to hear it in the chat. What do we do when we're going through transition? We push through it, acting like Superwoman. We stay busy. And then we even minimize our own need, especially those of you who are parents, and I understand that. And you just keep performing, especially for those of us who's going to get things done. We just keep performing. And then you wonder why you feel exhausted and your mood is up and down. Now, menopause, that's a different story. That is definitely a transition in the making, and that sometimes may seem like it doesn't even go away, right? So, one thing that I would tell you in that when it comes to transitioning, when we are involving, one of the things that I notice, and I notice this, y'all, even within myself, and this is one of the reasons that I'm doing this, is that structure, support, and having systems. Now, majority of the time in that when people are thinking about those things, most of the time they think about it as if you are to think about something externally. Now, in general, when it comes to structure, structure gives you rhythm. And it also gives you boundaries too. It's like what's in and what's out, right? And it gives you stability because without that, y'all, oh my, because one thing I can say, and it just is not knowing, especially if you're new to entrepreneurship, you gotta have structure. Get into an environment that helps set the structure. Some of you are able to do it on your own, and some, but to be honest, what I've seen, it doesn't matter how long you have been an entrepreneur, you do better when you are in environments. You're in better when you're in communities, when you're in circles. And so when it comes to, again, structure, it gives you the rhythm, gives you boundary and stability. And then the other thing is too, is that again, structure, support. Support a lot of times is missing during transition. And when I say that, I want to say this too. Sometimes our family and friends may not be able to support us because they're going through a transition that we have no knowledge, just like you're going through a transition that your family and friends may not even know that you have, that you're going through. And even when it comes to your business partners. But in general, when it comes to support, it does provide emotional regulation, can give you a different perspective, and if anything, accountability. And again, there's different types of transitions that you may be going through. But one thing that I would say, to be in an environment that can help you regulate your nervous system, and especially in giving you a different perspective, a different way of looking at things. And so those are, pretty much some of the things when it comes to this, when it comes to the support. Now, when it comes to the systems that you have in place, a lot of times you think about the external systems, but basically what it is that I'm moving something here. I don't even know pretty much why I did that, but it seemed like something was in the way, like I say, when it comes to this technology here. And so when it comes down to the systems, systems really create opportunities for you to sustain and to reduce your mental load. Because when you don't have systems in place, we overdo it, y'all, especially we as women, we end up putting too much on the plate. And we don't want to do that, y'all. We don't want to do that. Let's stop doing that. Let's stop putting so much on our plate, because of the fact when you do that, it's not even just a thing that cause the transition, whatever that is for you. Because again, everybody's at different types of transitions and different stages of transitions, and you may be in multiple transitions as well, because I know that has happened. That has definitely happened. And so But if we do not have systems in place, and I want to stay on this just for a little bit. A lot of times we're thinking about the external systems, in which that is very helpful too. And even when it comes to structure and support, when I always like to bring things back to us. What about your own internal systems? Meaning, what habits do you have that may be interfering in you transitioning? What habits that you have that may be harming you, to be honest, in you transitioning? What habits do you have that can help support your transition and to help you maneuver and navigate through that? And along with that is rituals. I'm a big fan of rituals because of the fact if you're not able, again, to sit in silence, to take 5 to thrive today, then you are overloading, again, your nervous system. And that, when it comes to your mental load, because sometimes you may be looking for others to create space for you or to do something, but y'all, a lot of times it be us. It be us. It be doing way too much. Just be doing way too much. But one thing that I can say is that when structure, support, and systems are missing, your transition, it is feel overwhelmed, chaotic, and you just feel like it's just too much. But when they are in place, then whatever that you're going through, and more so it's the transition, the path, it's more of a pathway and you can see that, and it's not a setback. Because one thing I can say is that, which is one of the things that led me to my self-care movement, in that it was a breakup. Like the very reason I moved, it ended up breaking me up, should I say. And one of the things that I can say is, even though I knew I was going to be okay, the thing that did help me, again, I added something. And you can say I added support, I added a system, I added some structure, which was yoga. And meditation is a part of yoga as well. And so again, what are you adding? Now, if you're going to add something to your plate, add something to your plate that's going to help you. And the other thing I want to say about that too, one thing that I've seen, y'all, we do not do enough to take care of ourselves. And the more that you take care of yourself, it allows you to slow down, and it helps you to nurture your nervous system, because of the fact things just get all out of whack, even when it comes to the good, transition as well. So I want to pretty much like introduce to you the power of the 3 T's when it comes to transitioning. And when it comes to the powers of the 3 T's, it's transition. I'm saying transition. It's transparency, transition, and transformation. And when it comes to transparency, this is a big one, y'all. And this is the one that we do not sit down long enough. And I want to say, like, as a human, we pretty much try to avoid it, because in our eyes, I like to say either we do one or two things. Some of us are in the middle, but most of the time, either you hide, meaning you're not telling the truth of yourself, of that it's like we as human, we think of ourselves as good, and everything was with good intentions, and which some of that can be true, but we need to be honest with ourselves. The other thing is, or either you criticize yourself, it's that negative self-talk. So it's either, I've seen where people are either I guess you could say they inflate, or they pretty much just do the complete opposite. of, how they look at themselves and how they're talking to themselves. So it's best to be able, I'm going to say, to travel to at least be somewhere in the middle. And again, it's about you being honest with yourself, assessing of who you are in that given time, where you are, and who you want to be and where you want to be. Because sometimes when you're in transition, especially when it comes to the heart, especially if something that's devastating for you, because some of you may be in transition where you've lost your job, you may be in transition where you are, again, it could be a breakup, a separation, or a divorce. It can be a transition into entrepreneurship or in a different position. But what I have seen is that, and I've even experienced in certain transitions in my life, that I wasn't at least sitting down long enough to really assess of where I was, but more so where I wanted to go. Because a lot of times we just want to be out of the transitions. Like, I want to get on this other side. I don't want to hurt no more. I just want to be good. But of course we know that is not how it works, right? And then when it comes to transition in and of itself, where you're moving from your current state of being to a more empowered version of yourself. And then there's transformation on the other side of that, So what I really want to focus on, I really want to focus heavily on transparency, because one thing I will say is that if you are not honest with yourself of when you're in a transition, especially a transition that is very difficult, is very hard, in that it can keep you stuck. It would keep you stuck. It's like the dynamics may continue to move, but you will end up being stuck. And being transparent is the foundation for very meaningful transition in and of itself. I'm not saying that transitions are easy per se, but when you're not honest with yourself about who you are in that given moment and where you are, and especially what's not working, you know what I'm saying? It's like, for instance, for me, one of my transition was a breakup. And with the breakup, I cried for 40 days and 40 nights. And I got sick and tired of being sick and tired of crying so much. I cried before I go to work, cried when I got off. I didn't cry at work. I did have enough, just the job that I had, it was so busy that nobody had time to cry. But my mind, was definitely, but like that was in the back of my mind. And so in saying that, just crying and letting it out was no longer working for me. So I ended up sitting down with myself and going deep into my soul so that I could connect much better with me. And so that is an example of really evaluating, even though that was more of a process in and of itself, but when you're more intentional about it, it makes it that much more easier as well. But for you to be brutally honest with yourself, y'all, because you're not brutally honest of where you are in your business, where you are in your life, where you are in relationships, anything that's meaningful for you as it relates to the transition, but just as it relates to life in and of itself. And for you to be able to face the reality. This is what transparency really means. It means for you to face the truth of who you are, face the truth of where you are, and not keeping secrets with yourself. And one thing I want to say too is our being, our humanness, our being is so smart. It's like it does some redundancy, but it's so smart that it hides a part of ourselves from ourselves. And this is one of the reasons in that sometimes you may not, this is where you have this suppression. This is where suppression comes in. You suppress certain things. And don't get me wrong, some things happen automatically, and sometimes you may do it intentionally because of what it just may be too much. But what I will say, whatever is suppressed, if it doesn't get ironed out, it will end up impacting you. And so with that, that means is that we need to visit our shadows sometimes, so that, again, that's being transparent. It's like, okay, what's in there? What do I need to get out? For some of you, that may require, therapy, and for others, and I'm a therapist myself. And one thing I'm going to say, even with therapists, even with therapy, you still need to do the work outside of therapy, because that's just how life is. If we don't face that, then all that I'm going to say, it makes it harder. It makes it harder. But for you to be vulnerable with yourself, because the thing is, we want others to be transparent, but if you're not transparent with yourself, one, is going to make it hard for you to be transparent with others. And then others may not be transparent with you, And just to be honest with your thoughts, to be honest with what comes through, not to always entertain it, but just to acknowledge it. And y'all, when y'all are doing this, don't be judging yourself. We don't want that negative self-talk to come in. And there's no shame of you being transparent with yourself. Again, these are the conversations that you are having with yourself. So again, how can you have a meaningful relationship with other people and you can't even have meaningful relationship with yourself? And don't be shaming yourself. It's just the truth of who you are and where you are at that given time during the transition. And y'all, please give yourself some grace and especially some self-compassion. Because with some transitions, like for me, when I cried for 40 days and 40 nights, even though I've had I've had breakups before, regardless of who initiate them, and I've even been divorced, y'all. Yes, but that particular breakup, oh my gosh. One thing I can say is, because I have never gone through that before, that was the state that I was in. And so it's the same thing for you all, as well. And the other thing about being transparent in your transition is that it allows you to have clarity and deeper self-awareness for your personal and professional growth. Because if you're not able to assess your current situation, you're going to be stuck. You're just going to be stuck, And then by you being honest with yourself, it helps you to identify some key challenges that you may be having, because you may be having a really hard time with something, meaning that are there certain areas in which you need more support? Are there certain things that you may need to avoid? Are you trying to, improve on certain habits? And are there certain habits you really need to kick to the curb, And again, with you being transparent, it allows you to reflect on where you stand in your life and in your business, y'all. And it just allows you to really just look at what's working and what's not working. There's just so much. And one thing I want to say too is that when you're in transition, it's kind of like transition has twofold, right? But when you're in transition, I want you to remember being honest, being transparent with yourself. It really comes first. That is the first thing, because without you being transparent, transition just feels so chaotic, because you're not assessing of where you are and where you want to be. You're not assessing of what you need. And then whatever habits that you develop, they get kicked to the curb. They just don't stick. And then, you can be easily overwhelmed, and then it can lead to burnout. And the other thing is things can get, if you're not transparent, so meaning you're not looking at certain things, even though there may have been some transformation, but that transformation can end up being temporary because you weren't being honest. A lot of times people want to have that, what's called that spiritual bypass. It's like you don't want to go through the mud or to be in the cocoon to get to the other side. You just want to, be in this glamorous. It's like, oh, I'm so happy. I'm over here. I made it to the other side. And a lot of times, y'all get that. That's backwards. That's not always just because you got to the other side. It doesn't really mean you're completely on the other side. Woo! I'm gonna leave that right there. That's a video. That's a video. And so for those of you who are watching live, what I want you to do, I want you to take a moment to reflect. And for those of you who are watching the replay, I want you to stop the video. But I am going to read off a couple of questions for you to answer. And just choose one though. So write this down. Ask yourself, who am I honestly? Just have a moment and write that down. And then I want you to write, where am I right now? Really, where am I? Then I want you to write, what am I avoiding admitting to myself? What are you avoiding admitting? Again, having that conversation with yourself. And what season, and the last one is, what season am I in? Now, what I want you to do for those of you who are live, I just want you to choose one. And I just want you to take a moment to reflect on that one. Just choose one and just reflect on it. Just reflect on that. Just reflect on that. And for those of you who are just coming in and you're wondering what we're doing, we're having a reflective moment here. Sometimes when it comes to silence, sometimes that disrupts individuals' nervous system, which is one reason it's good to practice it. All right. So that was a full 1 minute for you to reflect. And what I want you to do next is that with whatever one that you chose, I want you to at least make a note of why did you choose that? Like, what was it that resonated with you to want to answer that, to want to reflect that? Because that tells a story too. And so after this, or sometime later today, what I want you to do, and then for those of you who are watching the replay, I want you to pause this for 15 minutes and to answer all of these questions. Who are you honestly? Where are you right now, really? What am I avoiding admitting to myself, to yourself? And what season are you in? And I really feel like that last two are really big ones. I mean, in one sense, you can say they all kind of ask the same question, but when you ask them in a different way, it really makes a difference, And the other thing to think about too, especially when all transitions you're personally involved, but then some, I would say, can have some different dynamics. But if anything, I want you to remember, especially when it comes to breakups, when it comes to relationship transitions, I want you to remember that you are not a failure. And the transition itself is not a failure. Just because you're in transition, it doesn't mean that you're a failure or it's a failure. And know too that transitions are a natural part of growth. It's just it. And I like to say, if we're not preparing ourselves for certain transitions, it's just really mainly challenges in life, and that's where that resilient part come in. But transitions are really, it's the space between of who you were and who you're becoming. Again, you're in the mud, you're in the wilderness right now, and it's okay, because y'all, sometimes we need to be in the mud, because without the mud you won't be able to have certain character developments that you need for your calling, for your mission, for your ministry, for your movement. There are certain things that you need. Do you need to be more assertive? Do you need to set some boundaries? Do you need to speak up more? So sometimes with some experiences, and then again, when it comes to transitions, even though I've named some big ones, but sometimes transitions can be, it may not be that big. It can be other things. Because I look at a lot of things of being transitioned. And when you're thinking about transformation of where you are and where you want to be, y'all, it requires support. It really does. It requires support. And so having awareness alone doesn't create change, but structure and accountability and practice do. And y'all, again, remember how I was talking about the shadow side? The part that, when you hide yourself from yourself, because of that, because there are certain parts of ourselves that may be hidden, that's where that negative self-talk can come into play. That can be talking you out of things and having you not to do the things that need to be done in order for you to have the impact and to be connected and in alignment with your calling. And again, structure and accountability do that. And so in saying that, this is where the empower your evolution really comes to play, because if you're not empowering your evolution, then a lot of things gonna stay on the sideline, and you continue to be on the sideline. You continue to stop, you continue to stall, you continue to do all those things. But with support, like empowering your evolution, even though this is a webinar, but it is part of a bigger community. And with Empower Your Evolution, it's a 90-day experience for women in transition or for personal growth. And this is inside Fortitude Free Circle, and it's part of the VIP. And with the Fortitude Free Circle is for entrepreneurs who want to build discipline, embrace challenges, and to sustain resilience. Something got my attention, y'all. I would say so many moving parts here. And just to tell you a little bit about Fortitude Free Circle, Fortitude Free Circle is an exclusive community for purpose-driven entrepreneurs. We have weekly sessions to help you create space and to create that pace, so you won't be overworking y'all, because you'll be doing too much. And we provide, of course, inspiration and motivation and techniques so that you can thrive under pressure. Because if you're not practicing of how to be resilient, it's hard to be resilient in and of itself. And with Empower Your Evolution, it's a 90-day journey. And within the first 30 days, it's there to revive you, to help you to become alive, And I want to say that first 30 days, it's a sprint, y'all. I ain't gonna lie. It is. But it's there to give you clarity, again, for you to be more open with yourself. Because when you're open with yourself, you're open with others as well. And it also helps you to create some new habits and get rid of some old ones. And it helps you plan for your future and execute, practice, practice, practice. And the next 30 and 60 days is the restore and revitalize part of the journey. Because you want to be able to restore some of the things that need to be restored that may have gotten depleted either before the transition and during the transition. And it's lots of practice and consistency in integrating the things that you learn so that you can be sustainable in your business, in your life, Now, to tell you a little bit more about Empower Your Evolution, it is the VIP inside the circle. And again, it's a 90-day guided empowerment experience. You have access to one-on-one consultation and for follow-up. Because if anything, we already know this in business. We always say follow-up is the key. And that even when it comes to you, when you're in these programs, because without follow-up, sometimes you can slide. Now, there'll be weekly structure and accountability, as well as monthly. Oops. That's my phone. Sorry about that. As well as monthly Q&A and mindset support. And as an entrepreneur, a lot of times we're in a lot of different groups and circles, and they really do help. But one thing I will say, to have something that is definitely more on the personal side is needed, y'all. It's needed. It is just needed. And that's what we're about here. We're about being well so that we can make the impact, so that you're not impacted by your calling. You don't want to be impacted by your calling. And also with the VIP, it's a year, it's a full year inside the circle to allow you to have additional support. So you have the 90-day program in and of itself, but you also still have the support of inside the circle. And of course, when it comes to, when it comes to the VIP, there's an investment in that. And for those of you who are ready to make that investment, but let me say this is the first cohort of Empower Your Evolution. And we're only accepting 5 participants. It's for 2 reasons. One, because of the fact we want for it to be intimate, but also I want to make sure that you get what you need out of that. As it goes on, I would just say it will be assessed. And this is for an investment of $999. And that's $999. Some of you become, you said it was $9. But when you make investment in yourself, you get more out of it. And we want you to be able to fully participate. And this is a gap that I see as entrepreneurs and for those of you who are in leadership role. It's because again, you're going to always be in transition. So with that personal growth is something that's helpful. And again, it's a 90-day experience with a year of support. And with the VIP, these are for women. You're just tired of starting over. And with this, it will help you to develop. Again, it gives you structure, it gives you support and systems. And a lot of times it's our own internal system and support and structure that we need to develop. Because as a side note, this is something that I've seen over and over again as a therapist. Most of the time we don't have no structure. Most of the time we don't have the support that we need and the systems in place. And a lot of times, y'all, it's not the external system. And so, this is also for those of you who are ready to be honest and consistent. Because a lot of times you talk about being consistent, or this is one place where you can be consistent with. And this is an application base. So for those of you who are interested, comment empower. You're not just interested, you say you are ready for this. And again, by you applying for this, it creates clarity. Is this really for you? And are you ready to commit to you? And it doesn't, by applying, it does not obligate it. And then along with that, you will have a follow-up call after the application so that we can really see if you're a good fit, because this isn't for everybody. These are for women who's like, I'm ready to take this, to take you to the next level. So this is your invitation. If you're ready for support, you just don't, want more information. This is your invitation to apply. And for those of you who are inside the Zoom, the link is dropped for you. And so just remember, when you are in transition, having structure, having support, and having a system. And again, we're not just talking about external, y'all. You can have the external, but I'm telling you, if your internal system isn't, I want to say, regulated, nurtured, trained, then it makes transitions that you have in life even that much harder. And again, this is for personal growth as well, because a lot of times we're stuck because we're not growing. So for those of you who are ready, comment empower, and we'll see you on the other side.